When you really consider it, fans are hardly exposed to the personalities of individuals in major team sports. Their lucrative contracts are already set in stone, so there's little need to build themselves up. But MMA is the total opposite, in that captivating characters helps attract us fight fans. So with countless interviews and podcasts to indulge in, we have a pretty good grasp on what a fighter's like. But whether it's stress from the limelight, an attempt to create drama, or even brutal honesty, fighters, like anyone else, can show unusual behaviour, often caught on camera. I'm Tom from MMA On Point, and these are 10 surprisingly out of character moments in MMA. Number 10. Michael Chiesa forces trash talk. Defending your mum's honour is essentially a requirement for every son.
Don't you ever talk about my fucking mom!
That's partly why Chiesa famously lost his cool and charged at Kevin Lee when he mentioned her, even though he was literally just saying she had tickets to the fight. But the usual super respectful Chiesa was in fact very eager to initiate trash talking in the build-up.
I mean, aside from that, he just looks like some dork that got kicked out of Woodstock.
Aside from that rivalry with Kevin and being slightly more intense than normal by getting in Anthony Pettis' face at their weigh-ins, Chiesa has been an incredibly civil guy from his Ultimate Fighter victory to life as a welterweight. Perhaps he's turned fans off after complaining about reffing decisions.
Being some kind of playboy in front of the cameras making his little heart logos, maybe he should go back and read the fucking rule book.
Perhaps even more likely is that he hasn't won the aforementioned times he's tried it, and even admitted as much recently at a post-fight scrum.
I'm 0-2 in fights that I've tried to get into the trash talk stuff. I'm not going to go against my personality. I'm not going to go against who I am. You know what I mean? I tried that.
And since he's dropped the big trash talk, along with moving up to 170, which is no doubt a huge part of his success, he's gone 3-0 there to date. Number 9. Darren Till being scared to fight. To the outside world, Liverpool is best known for 3 things: sports, an unusual accent, and being home to a very tough group of people. Their finest MMA exports certainly fit the latter. On his undefeated rise to a welterweight title shot, Darren was just oozing with confidence and had this fearless aura around him. When he edged out Stephen Thompson in his home city, Till gave us an insight into this mindset.
I'm not scared of anyone! No one! They're all getting it!
And after dealing with the trauma of being stabbed, Darren remained incredibly headstrong. But when his invincibility was shattered by Woodley and Masvidal back to back, his self-assured nature was in doubt.
Just crazy confidence that I'm just a superhuman being inside the octagon. It got knocked a bit. I'm not afraid to say, I'm not ashamed to say that. And I want to get that back. It's there. I'm still that confident guy that you put me in front of everyone, I know I can beat them. I know there's something inside me that can beat everyone.
Following his return to winning ways and moving up in weight class against Kelvin Gastelum, Till openly admitted he was terrified and did not want to fight.
I tell you, I was trying to fake an injury before walking out. I was thinking of an injury to fake because I just simply did not want to get in there.
Seeing one of the more vocally confident and sure combatants in MMA open up this much was truly a shocking moment, especially for someone at that level. Number 8. Kelvin Gastelum crowns himself middleweight champ. Speaking of Gastelum, there's definitely a temptation in modern MMA for fighters to follow the Conor McGregor blueprint and become this loud and brash character outside the octagon in order to generate hype.
His question is, why you talking shit? That's his question.
Many fighters have dabbled in it, Kelvin Gastelum included. In almost every interview since his Underdog Ultimate Fighter finale win in 2013, Kelvin has always come across as just a normal guy, a fun person who strays away from the drama and flamboyance that some of his colleagues manufacture. But he must have took some tips from his buddy Henry Cejudo, or reaching back to Chael Sonnen in years past, as after Robert Whittaker pulled out the day of their scheduled UFC 234 title fight, Gastelum showed up at the arena for his backstage interviews donning a UFC title, proclaiming himself as the new 185-pound champ.
You know, in my world, in the wrestling world, you know, a guy shows up, makes the weight, for whatever reason can't continue on to the competition, and that's a forfeit. Automatically, that makes me the champion.
Seeing Kelvin act like this was rather cringy, as Michael Bisping stated himself.
But he literally stood there all night with Henry Cejudo's championship belt over his shoulder. You know, and at that point I was like, come on, Kelvin, man. It's a little bit cringe.
But after the event, he would explain the UFC may have well skipped him over for a title shot had he not created that noise. It's hard to say for sure, but at least he did get the Adesanya interim title bout. Number 7, Mr. Wonderful talks some trash. In stacked UFC divisions, simply winning fights sometimes doesn't get you that title shot in a timely manner. Just look at Leon Edwards. But not so long ago, Phil Davis was in the same position, with his normal personality and wrestling heavy style that some perceived as, well, boring. The 4-time NCAA All-American was getting overlooked for a crack at Jones despite holding wins over Gustafsson, Little Nog and Machida. So in the lead up for his co-main event against Rumble Johnson at UFC 172, where Jones was coincidentally headlining, Phil ditched his respectful demeanor and went after the champion during a conference call, disregarding his actual opponent, saying he'd take John down and rip his arm off. He referenced that Jones looked absolutely atrocious against Gustafsson and was actually lucky to get the judge's nod, while Jones comically alluded to this strange behaviour.
That wasn't nice, bro. What's wrong with you, Phil? Phil, when we become like this?
It was unlike anything we'd ever seen from Davis, who is usually associated with being relaxed and always joking around. Ironically, he was comfortably defeated by Rumble, but you know, that's Rumble's power for you. Number 6, I'm not impressed. GSP is the absolute epitome of a mixed martial artist. He embodies the hard-working, respectful aspects of the sport and is always polite to his opponents, even when questioning if Michael Bisping is intoxicated.
Are you intoxicated or something?
Is that all you got?
That's why you're wearing some sunglasses?
Is that the only line you've got, John?
Are you intoxicated?
Yeah.
The Canadian has quite literally and politely begged for a title shot in the cage.
Please, I want the belt so bad!
And probably never offended anyone on purpose in his life. So when George entered the octagon at UFC 63 to build a fight with then champion Matt Hughes, who was not only his idol but the only man at that point to defeat him, fans expected a simple congratulations. Instead, we were gifted with the iconic,
I'm not impressed by your performance.
Yes, GSP had just completely insulted Hughes to his face, of course yes, in stereotypical Canadian politeness with all the hugging and handshakes, but it was totally left field from George, catching everyone off guard. In the time since this infamous moment, however, GSP has apologised for saying it and admitted it was out of his character, to which fight fans everywhere pleasantly sighed in unison, and gravity resumed as the world returned to normality.
Not impressed by your performance.
Number 5, Humble Connor. From his UFC debut back in 2013 all the way until that ridiculously heated matchup with Khabib, trash talking has been the Irishman's currency to generate hype around fights and also mess with his opponents' heads. It made Jose Aldo overreach and run into the touch of death, while countless one-liners at Diaz's or even poor Jeremy Stevens' expense became those few words you can never get away from on MMA Twitter.
Who the fuck is that guy?
But the shit talking got seriously personal against Khabib, along with plenty of proper 12 drinking and some not so secret criminal activity. It was clear Connor had fallen off the rails by even his own recounts since then. But then, for his return matchup with Donald Cerrone, we witnessed a total 180 with an extremely civil McGregor who entirely avoided talking his usual game despite the history with Cowboy. Even going as far as saying,
though there will be blood spilled on January 18th, it will not be bad blood.
He was on time to the pre-fight press conference, which was a miracle in on itself, and for the first time ever showed nothing but grace to his opponent.
You know, he's become a family man. Obviously, you've seen him compete so many times. It's hard not to respect Donald right now at this stage, and he has my respect.
In the end, a polite McGregor put on one of the quickest and most decisive performances of his career. Something tells me, though, that we should expect him to revert back to the old ways should Dana grant him that Khabib rematch or Tony fight here soon. And he's not actually minced words for Jorge Masvidal either.
Wasn't a good night for Jorge, if you ask me. But all the best to him. God loves a trier.
Number 4, Shinya Aoki giving the bird. Sportsmanship is a huge part of MMA. Even the bigger trash talkers in this game almost always show respect once the contest is said and done. Japan's Shinya Aoki, all for one fight, has been no different. The former Shuto 1 and Dream champion is quite the fierce competitor who's definitely willing to snap a limb or two with their ground game in order to get the victory. But afterwards, it's usually something like him weeping in tears after beating the legendary Sakuraba out of respect. Aoki's out of character moment came immediately after he quickly isolated and snapped Mizuto Hirota's right arm after he refused to tap. The 2009 bout was the tiebreaker of a 9-fight contest between the promotion's Dream and Sengoku, so with that added emotion plus a bit of talk in the build-up, Aoki turned back to his mangled opponent and waved a middle finger in his helpless face. It was a monumental sign of disrespect beyond what anyone thought Shinya was capable of. He then proceeded to flip off the crowd, say suck it to one of the ring girls, run backstage and confuse everyone watching or in attendance.
What just transpired exactly?
He's not done anything like that since, so it just stands as a singularly strange and rare moment in time for his career. Number 3, the Carpenter fights calculated. If you've ever seen a Clay Guida fight, I imagine it's gone something along the lines of super intense stare down followed by rock'em sock'em robots and hair flying all over the place. It's just the way he fights. But in his only UFC main event, Guida, for the first time in his career, decided on a game plan that wasn't to come forward and bring war.
No! No!
For all of 5 rounds against Gray Maynard, he was on his bike with head movement that would give you a migraine. Tired of chasing him, Maynard actually flipped him off in the 4th round, and Dan Mogliata even warned Guida for it in the 5th. That's right, Clay Guida warned for a lack of action. That just doesn't even sound right. His incredibly energetic walkout had fans pumped for a slugfest, but I guess his messy hair being neatly braided for the first time in the octagon was a metaphor for the point-scoring game plan that he explained the Jackson Wink camp strategized to avoid Maynard's bombs and wrestling. So what did the unnatural approach earn him? A split decision loss and a whole lot of boos. We haven't seen him try this since. Number 2, the Predator goes gun shy. I'm not sure there's a more terrifying striker in MMA history than Francis Ngannou. Just ask Andrei Arlovsky or Alistair Overeem. If you stand toe to toe with him in the octagon, expect the Shadow Realm. Only Stipe Miocic has weathered the storm in the UFC by this point, ultimately exploiting Francis's ground game and cardio to defend the heavyweight title. This wasn't a total disaster considering Ngannou had only been training MMA for less than 5 years, but it was time for a reset. So matchmakers set him up with fellow heavy hitter Derek Lewis, and that was sure to produce fireworks. Only the bout was, well, it was a total snooze fest. Pretty much nothing happened. Herb Dean had to pause the contest to tell them to actually fight multiple times, and Ngannou had gone from a first round devastator to being reluctant to throw a simple jab, only landing 11 total strikes on his way to a decision loss. Dana called the fight an abomination and claimed Francis' ego had gotten out of control, although the man himself explained it was the fear he couldn't let go of from the Stipe loss that made him hesitant to exchange. Thankfully, for us bloodthirsty spectators, this was a one-fight blip, as the Nigerian has bounced back with 3 straight first round finishes. And number 1, the Eagle soars. Aside from when the cage door shuts and he unleashes absolute beatdowns on his opponents, Dagestan's 2-time Combat Sambo world champion is a pretty laid-back guy who just wants to train, fight, and go about his business with no drama. You'll often see clips of his humorous side at AKA, and Khabib's usually respectful towards opponents in the aftermath of fights, calling Al Iaquinta a true American gangster, then auctioning off a worn t-shirt for $100,000 and donating it to Dustin Poirier's charity. But against Conor McGregor at UFC 229, the sheer amount of deeply personal trash talk, not to mention the bus attack and, well, Dylan Dennis cage side, was all the ingredients needed for Nurmagomedov to absolutely explode. So after he submitted Conor, Khabib then lived up to his Eagle moniker by flying at his rival's training partner Dylan Dennis, who had allegedly been taunting him throughout the fight, initiating a mass brawl. It was an act of aggression and recklessness we'd never seen from Khabib outside of competition. Its shocking nature and the ridiculous fine he was slapped with is a recipe enough to top our list. Thanks so much to Charlie Howard for writing this list. You can follow him at MMA_Charlie. And thanks so much to MJ Moore for editing it. You can follow him at TomMJ_Moore. Thanks for watching that video. Please do like and subscribe. We upload 3 jaw-droppingly juicy MMA videos a week to get your teeth into, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to follow us at OnPoint MMA and Tom A. Ransom on Twitter, and you make sure you have a great day.